All right, welcome to lecture number 6, everybody. This one is going to be an extremely important lesson because we're going to talk about one of the basics of our strategy and in trading in general, and that is the risk reward. You probably heard this word before. Sometimes we refer to it as simply RR, sometimes even RRR, which is simply risk reward ratio. RR is risk reward. It's just all basically different words for the same thing. But what does it actually mean? So, every single successful trader will always think in probabilities because as I mentioned in lesson number 1, nothing is guaranteed in the markets, okay? So you're always going to have to worry about this is something that I can lose. This is a risk. So risk and reward are going to be at the core of every profitable trader. Now, you understood with the last lesson how to calculate your lot size. Now you need to understand why lot size is directly connected to your risk. Now, what does the word risk actually means? Risk is essentially how much you're willing to lose in case that trade doesn't work out. You take a trade on Euro USD. The risk is that that trade on Euro USD does not work out. And this risk is usually expressed in percentage. That's how we refer to it. For example, I risked 1% on this trade and I lost, which means I risked 1% of my total capital on this trade and that trade ended up not working out. Now, just by looking at this and doing some very simple math, if you risk 1% per trade, it means that if you lose 10 trades in a row, where you risk 1% in all of them, you have lost 10% of your total capital. Now, if you risk 10% per trade and you lose 10 trades in a row, now you have lost your whole capital, which is why you understand why managing your risk and knowing how and when to risk more and when to risk less is extremely fundamental. The goal as a trader is not to avoid losses. As I mentioned many times, losses are part of your growth, as a trader. If you do not take losses, you're not going to learn, you need to make those mistakes in order to improve as a trader. So your goal is not to open a trade and saying the best outcome is that I don't lose. That is absolutely incorrect. The goal is for you to survive long enough in the markets to make enough profits for you to actually become profitable. We mention this all the times. A lot of scamming gurus or just people on social media will make you think that in order to be profitable, you need to have like 100% win rate or like a 90% win rate where you barely take any losses, which is absolutely not true. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to see the numbers today and see why this is not true. You can have a 50% win rate, 40% win rate, but as long as you manage your risk properly, you're still going to end up profitable. So that is essentially the risk. Reward, as the name says, is your actual reward in case the trade goes well. For example, reward is how much you stand to make compared to how much you're going to lose. So if I say my risk reward on this trade is 1 to 3 and I'm risking $100, okay? Let's just say that you have a $10,000 account. You want to risk 1%, which is $100, and you're taking a 1 to 3 risk reward trade. That means that you are risking $100 to try to make $300. The risk is 100, the reward is 300. With our strategy, we're only going to focus on high risk reward trades. Those are the ones that allow us to be profitable. And we will never take a setup unless it's at least 1 to 3 risk reward. And once again, I'm going to explain to you why and the math behind this in just a second. But the core is that risk is how much you're willing to lose in case the trade doesn't work out, and the reward is how much you're going to make. Simple as that. It's referred as RR, it's referred as RRR. It doesn't matter, it's as simple as that. So the reason why it's so important to have a proper risk management system is that with a system like that, a strategy like ours, you can be wrong most of the times and still end up profitable. And I know you're probably thinking, how is this even possible? What do you mean? I can have a 40% win rate and I can still be profitable? How does that work? Well, let's take a look at it on the charts and see a realistic scenario. So these are just long and short positions on TradingView. Very simple ways to put your buy entry and sell entry. And all these trades are 1 to 3 risk reward. You see, it says it right here, risk reward ratio. So you can see these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 trades. Let's just say that we are risking 1% per trade. So once again, we do the math. If we are risking 1% and the risk reward is 1 to 3, it means that if the trade works out, I'm gonna make 3%. If the trade doesn't work out, I'm gonna lose 1%. And you can see, first trade is a stop loss, second trade is a stop loss, third trade is a stop loss, fourth trade is a win, fifth trade is a win, sixth trade is a stop loss, seventh trade is a win, eighth trade is a stop loss, ninth trade is a win, 10th trade is a stop loss. So if we do the math, that is 10 trades with 4 wins and 6 losses. When we won, we made 3%. When we lost, we lost 1%. So let's run the numbers. 10 trades in total, 4 wins, 6 losses. That is a 40% win rate, and the total percentage made is plus 6%. Which means that after taking more losses than wins, I still ended up being 6% in profit. Which just goes to show how important it is to manage your risk properly and having a proper risk reward system. You do not let your emotions take over after a few losses. You're like, oh, let me move my risk reward from 1 to 3 to 1 to 1 and let me risk more so I can make back the lot. No, all of that is emotional trading, which will not take you anywhere. What you should do is always stick to your plan, always stick to your risk management plan, and do not let your emotions take over, because if you do so, you're still gonna end up profitable even though you have a 40% win rate. That is how strong risk reward is and how strong risk management is in general. So that's pretty much it for risk reward. Let's move on to lecture number 7.